Have you ever felt like something invisible was pulling you down? Your energy suddenly crashes for no reason. Your thoughts grow heavy. Your sleep becomes disturbed. People close to you start acting distant. And you ask yourself, what's happening to me? You go to the doctor. They tell you it's stress. You meditate. You journal. You clean up your diet. But nothing works. Because what you're experiencing might not be stress. It might be a psychic attack. No, not in a Hollywood, spell-casting, fantasy kind of way, but in a very real psychological and energetic sense, where someone, somewhere, is sending you harm. Not through visible actions, but through focused emotion, silent hatred, unresolved jealousy. You don't need to believe in magic to feel the damage it causes. You just need to pay attention. This video is for anyone who has felt drained, disoriented, or deeply unsettled, without explanation. It's for the rational mind that knows something is off, but can't quite prove it. And most importantly, it's for the Stoic in you who refuses to be a victim of invisible forces. Today, we're not going to panic. We're not going to fight shadows. We're going to reclaim our clarity step by step, the Stoic way. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to restore your energy, cleanse your space, and rebuild the kind of spiritual armor that fear cannot touch. Let's begin. What is a psychic attack, and why Stoics should care? So what exactly is a psychic attack? It's not some spooky curse cast under the full moon. It's not a scene from a horror movie. It's far more subtle and far more common. A psychic attack is an intense projection of negative energy toward you. It can come from a person who envies you, resents you, or silently wishes you harm. It doesn't require rituals or candles. It requires only one thing: focused emotional intent. It shows up in ways you can't easily trace. A sudden wave of anxiety when you're alone, feeling watched, drained, disconnected. The sense that your thoughts aren't entirely your own. The Stoics didn't talk about psychic attacks in modern language, but they knew something that matters deeply here. Your inner peace can be attacked and must be guarded. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what happens when the outside events feel invisible? When there's no obvious cause, no clear conflict, and yet something inside you starts to erode? That's why we must understand this from a Stoic perspective. A psychic attack is not just an energy event. It's an attack on your perception, your clarity, your stillness. And if perception is the core of Stoicism, then protecting that perception is not just spiritual hygiene, it's philosophical discipline. That's why we must treat this seriously, not with fear, not with superstition, but with precision. We must observe, we must track, we must cleanse not with fantasy, but with reason, with intention, with awareness, because clarity is the first shield, and a Stoic never lets their mind be hijacked by shadows. Sign 1, the quiet collapse of inner stability. The first sign of a psychic attack is subtle. It doesn't come with alarms or flashing warnings. It arrives quietly, like fog, like static, like something soft, but unrelenting. Suddenly, your once clear mind begins to blur. You lose your rhythm. Your concentration drops. You forget simple things, your keys, your appointments, your purpose. And the worst part? You can't explain why. You wake up already tired. You start questioning yourself. Doubt becomes your background noise. You used to feel grounded. Now you float in uncertainty. This isn't just burnout. It's not just a bad week, it's an your internal collapse without a visible trigger. And that's exactly how a psychic attack begins. It doesn't destroy your world, it erodes your foundation. Thought by thought, feeling by feeling, decision by decision. You start pulling away from routines that once centered you. You don't want to meditate. You avoid journaling. You forget to eat, or you eat too much. You scroll aimlessly, hoping for answers that never come. Your body is trying to signal something deeper. Something is off, and your mind, once your ally, starts to feel like a stranger. The internal dialogue becomes fragmented. What's wrong with me? Why can't I focus? Am I just lazy? Is this depression? But it's not always depression, and it's not always laziness. Sometimes it's an external pressure pushing inward, so subtly that you think it's your fault. Here's what Stoicism teaches us in this moment. Don't panic. Don't force a fix. Observe. Epictetus said, "When something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it." In this case, your job is not to suppress what you're feeling. It's to look at it clearly, without judgment, without fear. Ask yourself, when did this shift begin? Who was I around? What changed in my environment? What changed in my internal state? The Stoic way is not about being unaffected. It's about not being unaware. Because awareness isn't just a philosophical concept, it's survival. The sooner you notice the shift, the sooner you stop it from spreading. The longer you deny it, the deeper it grows like roots under a house. And once you begin to see the pattern, you take the first step back toward clarity. Because even in a psychic attack, the greatest loss is not energy, it's awareness. And the moment you reclaim your awareness, you begin to reclaim yourself. Sign 2, physical symptoms with no medical root. The second sign of a psychic attack is deeply personal and deeply confusing. It shows up in the one place we think we can trust, our own body. You begin to feel tired all the time. Not just tired, drained. Like your energy is leaking from somewhere unseen. You sleep, but you don't rest. You eat, but feel empty. You breathe, but the air feels thin. Your muscles ache. Your chest tightens. Anxiety sneaks in, not in reaction to anything specific, but as a baseline feeling. You go to the doctor, you do the tests, they all come back normal. They tell you it's stress, but something inside you whispers, no, it's something else. And that inner whisper, that's not paranoia, that's awareness, trying to break through the noise. It often starts with micro frictions. Waking up with a racing heart, losing patience for things that never bothered you, feeling the need to lie down even after a full night's sleep. Then it escalates. Your memory dulls. Simple tasks feel monumental. You begin canceling plans, not because you're lazy, but because the idea of showing up feels impossible. People around you start noticing. You look pale. You seem off. Are you okay? But you don't have the words to explain what's wrong, because how do you describe a kind of weight that doesn't show up on scans? A kind of sickness that isn't physical, but still completely real? The Stoics believed in listening to reality, not fantasy, not fear. But they also understood that not all pain has a visible cause. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And yet even he acknowledged the raw imagination creates very real suffering if not examined. So what if your suffering isn't imaginary, just unmeasured? When your emotional and physical state decline without logical explanation. This is when a Stoic begins to observe. not deny. Let's be clear. Not every strange symptom is a sign of psychic interference. But when those symptoms follow a pattern, appear suddenly, and or resist all normal remedies, they demand your attention. Your peace is your baseline. When that peace collapses and your body follows, you must ask not only what is happening, but why now? This is where a small, carefully placed spiritual lens can help. Not to abandon logic, but to fill in what logic can't yet explain. What if, just what if, someone's resentment toward you has become more than a feeling? What if emotion, directed with intensity, can ripple outward? Not as magic, but as focused intent. Something your body, wiser than you think, has picked up on. The Stoics would not tell you to burn incense or cast protection spells. They would tell you, start with your mind. And then observe your patterns. When do your symptoms spike? Who were you around before they began? What environments seem to deplete you most? Your body is a journal, a record of subtle impact. Pay attention, write it down, build awareness like armor. And if, after all rational effort, the symptoms persist, then allow yourself a gentler question. Could I be under pressure from something unseen? Not to scare yourself, but to give your soul permission to investigate what reason alone can't fix. Not every wound is visible, but every wound leaves a signal, and the Stoic path is to follow it with courage, with calm, with eyes wide open. Sign 3, the emotional fallout and relationship fracture. Sometimes the attack doesn't land in your body, it lands in your relationships. People you love begin pulling away. Conversations become tense or disappear entirely. Trust erodes and you don't understand why. You haven't changed your words. You haven't shifted your tone. But somehow, everything you say lands wrong. Your closest ally stops calling. Your partner grows cold. Your inner circle turns to silence. Or worse, suspicion. This isn't just loneliness. It's not just social fatigue. It's an energetic fracture. And while it may sound abstract, this type of breakdown is one of the most telling signs of a spiritual or psychological attack. Because when you can't reach people who once saw you clearly, it may not be you who's changed. It may be the perception of you that's been clouded. You sense it in their tone, hesitation where there used to be ease. You reread their texts, wondering if you're imagining the coldness. You try to explain yourself, only to be met with blank stares or unexplained withdrawal. In ancient times, this was the darkest form of psychic harm. Not to injure the body, but to isolate the soul, to separate you from your tribe, to whisper distortion into the minds of others. And in today's world, it can be even more dangerous, because people don't need spells to turn on you. They just need suggestion, a twisted narrative, a subtle lie whispered at the right moment. Social media makes it worse. Now perception spreads faster than truth. A single misunderstanding can ripple through a group chat and return as silent exile. The Stoics taught us not to chase what we cannot control. Epictetus said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." Still, even Stoicism doesn't deny the pain of being misunderstood. So how do we face this? First, observe the pattern. Did multiple relationships fracture in a short time? Did the change begin around a specific event or new person? Are the shifts in perception sudden, illogical, or emotionally charged? If the answers point to a common thread, then you're not imagining it. you're detecting interference. Now here's the truth. Not all interference is supernatural. Sometimes it's gossip, projection, miscommunication. But if these shifts happen alongside physical symptoms, mental fog, and emotional unease, you may be under a kind of influence that bypasses logic. That's when you need clarity, not closure. The Stoic path doesn't demand answers from others. It demands alignment within. So instead of chasing people to fix the fracture, ask, am I acting from my highest clarity? Am I projecting pain or protecting peace? Am I still me? Because if the answer is yes, and yet others still turn away, then let them go, for now. Distance, when chosen in self-respect, becomes sacred space. It allows you to stabilize your frequency, to clean the mirror others are reflecting you through. And if they return, they return. If they don't, you still remain whole, clear, unmoved. That is Stoic resilience. And sometimes the deepest healing isn't fixing broken bonds. It's releasing the ones that no longer reflect your light. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to stand in truth, even if it gets quiet around you for a while. Because in silence you meet yourself. And from that clarity, the right people, the ones who truly see you, will return. Sign 4. Disconnection from your center and sense of self. There's a moment in every silent attack when it stops feeling external, when the chaos is no longer around you, it's within you. You start questioning yourself more than anyone else ever could. Your thoughts feel foreign. Your confidence flickers. You doubt your memory, your purpose, even your identity. You look in the mirror and ask, what's happening to me? And yet nothing outside looks broken. Your job is still intact. Your home is still standing. Your social media shows smiles. But inside, there's a storm. There's weight. There's disorientation. This isn't depression. It's not simple anxiety. It's a one severing from your center. A rupture in the inner compass that once pointed you toward clarity. You try to journal, but the words feel fake. You meditate, but your mind resists stillness. You revisit goals, only to feel like a stranger in your own intentions. The Stoics believe that your center, your reason, your clarity, your virtue is the one thing the world cannot touch. So when you feel unmoored, drifting without cause, the Stoic response is not to panic, it's to pause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But what if, when you try to retreat inward, you find only silence, static, or shadows? That is the fourth sign. When you feel disconnected from your inner stillness, not because you've neglected it, but because something is blocking your access. The ancient world had a name for this: energetic entanglement. Not in a mystical way, but in a psychological one. When too many outside voices flood your space, you lose your own voice. When too many projections land on your field, you start carrying reflections that aren't yours. You begin doubting your worth based on how others have recently treated you. You feel contaminated by emotions that don't feel like yours. That's when Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a rescue rope. Because even when the mind is fogged, discipline can be your map back. Here's how. Return to your core truths, not feelings, truths. Eliminate noise, social media, toxic texts, overanalysis. Do one small thing with full presence, just one. Fold your clothes, cook a meal, walk in silence, but be there. Each act of presence pulls you one layer closer to yourself. This is where a light spiritual lens, not religious, not ritualistic, but reflective, can offer balance. If you've tried everything logical, journaling, resting, self-inquiry, and you still feel hijacked, then give yourself permission to say, maybe there's more at play here than I can name right now. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The Stoic path doesn't reject mystery, it simply refuses to be ruled by it. So if the darkness has reached your core, don't light candles. Light awareness. Strip back the noise. Recenter in truth. Anchor in presence. And remember, if you feel disconnected, it doesn't mean you're lost. It means it's time to come home to yourself. Again, one breath, one clear thought, one solid truth at a time. The Stoic mindset. Response over reaction. At this point, you felt the symptoms, the exhaustion, the confusion, the isolation, the loss of self, and now comes the most critical moment. How will you respond? Because the danger isn't just in the attack, it's in the way you might unconsciously react to it, lashing out, shutting down, becoming paranoid, turning on yourself. That is how the attack finishes its job, by convincing you to self-destruct. This is where Stoicism becomes not just philosophy, but protection. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In the face of invisible harm, your power lies in this. Response over reaction. Reaction is impulsive, emotional, unfiltered. It's driven by the desire to regain control, even if that control is an illusion. You might text someone in anger, confront a friend based on suspicion, post a vague rant on social media, or collapse inwards, convinced no one understands you. And then, regret, because reaction makes you louder, not clearer. It drains your energy faster than the attack itself. Response, on the other hand, is deliberate, centered, observant. It breaks the pattern, it rebuilds ground. Here's how a Stoic mind responds. 1. Pause. Don't personalize. Not everything negative is about you. Not every setback is a signal. Begin with observation, not judgment. 2. Document the disruption. What changed? When? Who entered your space? Write down patterns, remove the emotion, keep the facts. 3. Return to what is within your control. Your breath, your attention, your daily decisions. These are your anchor points, your calm in the storm. 4. Detach with compassion. If someone is the sort of confusion, distance is medicine. Not revenge, not coldness, just clarity. 5. Reframe the challenge. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't just a disruption, it's an invitation to become stronger than before. But most importantly, don't give the enemy your reaction. Nothing empowers an attacker more than knowing they've rattled your clarity. Let your silence say what your emotions want to scream. Let your stillness deliver a message louder than retaliation ever could. In a world that rewards outrage, confusion, noise, your calm is your rebellion. Your calm is your shield. And when all else feels unclear, ask yourself this: what would the version of me, rooted, wise, grounded, choose right now? Then choose that, because even under attack, even in chaos, a Stoic never gives up their greatest weapon, their mind. Daily Stoic practices to rebuild energy and clarity. Once you've identified the attack, the next step is recovery. But recovery doesn't mean fighting shadows or searching for secret enemies. It means returning to yourself. Because the damage wasn't just in what happened, it was in what you stopped doing, thinking, feeling. You stopped trusting your rhythm. You abandoned your structure. You let doubt replace discipline. So now we don't need rituals. We need rebuilding routines. Grounded, repeatable, clear. The Stoics weren't just philosophers of the mind. They were architects of daily behavior. Their resilience didn't come from theory, it came from repetition. Here are 5 Stoic-aligned practices to restore your inner power. 1. Clean your physical space, calm your inner world. Clutter isn't just external, it echoes inside the mind. Start by clearing your desk, your room, your home. No incense, no spells, just order, simplicity, precision. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your dwelling be simple, your thoughts even simpler." Your environment is not just a backdrop, it's an energetic mirror. Every object left out, every pile you ignore, is a decision left unfinished. Clarity begins where you decide to put things back in place. 2. Journal with brutal honesty. Every night ask yourself, what disturbed my peace today? What was mine to carry and what wasn't? Epictetus advised, examine every impression and say, wait, let me see what you are. Journaling is not an emotional dump. It's a form of mental sorting. It helps you identify what thoughts belong to you and which were planted there by others. Write what you fear, write what you know, and write until the fog becomes a shape. Because once something is on paper, it can no longer ambush you in silence. 3rd practice, controlled breathing. No chants, no mantras, just breathe. Box breathing. 4 seconds in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Do it for 2 to 3 minutes. Notice how the noise softens. The present moment returns. This is not a spiritual technique. This is nervous system regulation. And the Stoics knew, a regulated body creates a still mind. When your breath slows, your decisions improve. 4. Reset boundaries. Psychic attacks often pierce where one's boundaries are too loose. Reflect on where your energy leaks. What conversations leave you drained? Who demands too much access to your time or attention? Where are you saying yes to things that betray your peace? Your time, your focus, your silence are sacred. If something disrupts that sacredness repeatedly, distance is an act of self-loyalty. Seneca said, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. This isn't isolation. This is filtration. 5. Repeat truth, not mantras, but anchors. You don't need affirmations. You need reminders of reality. Here are a few. I cannot be harmed by what I do not internalize. My mind is mine. I am not disturbed by events, but by my judgment of them. Say these out loud when the fog returns, not as magic, but as mental alignment, like returning a compass to true north. Even if your emotions aren't convinced, your discipline will lead the way. None of this is spiritual fluff, it's Stoic recalibration. Simple, repeatable, rooted, and yes, if after doing all this, something still feels off, you don't need to reach for ritual. Just breathe, observe, and tell yourself, I am doing the work. The fog will lift, my clarity will return, because it always does. And when it does, you won't just feel better, you'll be stronger. Not because the attack disappeared, but because it no longer defines you. Reclaiming inner power. What the Stoics would do when under attack. Now that you've grounded yourself, let's ask the most important question. What would a Stoic do if they believed they were under psychic or spiritual attack? Would they panic? Would they try to retaliate? Would they light candles or seek vengeance? Number, they would anchor deeper into clarity. Because to the Stoic, the greatest weapon against any assault, seen or unseen, is not force. It's control over the self. Marcus Aurelius faced political betrayal, family disappointment, war, plague. Yet his response? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If he were alive today and felt the weight of an invisible pressure, he wouldn't reach for superstition, he would reach for discernment. He would ask, what is real? What is reaction? What can I choose right now to reclaim my peace? Because reclaiming inner power is not about expelling darkness. It's about amplifying light. Not with rituals, but with reason, with discipline, with presence. You see, the Stoics believe that adversity is not an interruption of the path. It is the path. When external forces press in, the true Stoic doesn't flinch. He leans into the moment and says, here is where I will build my strength. But the Stoics were not blind to energy. They understood that people carry intent, and that intent shapes outcomes. So what did they do? They removed themselves. They went inward. They purified thought. They stayed calm in the face of the unexplainable. Not because it wasn't real, but because their clarity was more real. And that's what you must now do. Reclaim your power. Not with fire, but with focus. Not with panic, but with poise. Not by proving to others you're under attack, but by proving to yourself that you cannot be moved by what does not belong to you. You don't owe anyone a performance of suffering. You don't need to explain your silence. You only need to return to your center. Remember, the enemy is not just someone who wants to harm you. The real enemy is anything that convinces you to abandon yourself. Doubt, fear, paranoia. Those are the weapons. So what do? You outlast them. You shine so clearly that distortion has no place left to hide. You return again and again to your stillness. Because in a world of manipulation, distraction, and unseen pressure, stillness is the revolution. And your inner power, that's the fire no shadow can touch. Final clarity, how to know you've broken free. There's a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when you realize the fog is gone. The fatigue fades. Your thoughts feel sharp again. You sleep and actually rest. You wake up without dread. Your instincts hum with calm instead of confusion. That's how you know you've broken free. Not because the attacker disappeared, not because the energy vanished in a burst of light, but because you returned to the one place they could never truly touch, your center. Breaking free doesn't always feel like a victory march. Sometimes it feels like quiet consistency. You no longer over-explain yourself. You stop asking, why did they do this? You stop seeking closure from chaos. You move with intention, not apology. Instead of obsessing over the source of harm, you reorient around the source of your strength. You eat better. You speak slower. You no longer feel the need to prove, defend, or justify. Your inner world no longer belongs to reaction. It belongs to choice. And that's when the invisible cords dissolve. Not because you fought the darkness, but because you stopped feeding it with fear. You watched it. You studied it. You faced it with clarity. You met it with boundaries. And you walked forward without dragging the past behind you. That is Stoic freedom. You move differently now. You trust your instincts, but you're no longer ruled by them. You protect your space, not with ritual, but with reason. You speak less and observe more. You listen to your body, you document your shifts, you honor your silence, and above all, you never ever hand your clarity to anyone again. Not in exchange for approval, not in fear of loss, not in confusion dressed as kindness. You've been to the edge of distortion and came back whole. That's freedom. That's Stoic strength. So if you're listening to this and something inside you says, "That's me," then say it out loud. I'm reclaiming my light. Let the world hear it. Let your soul remember it. Because the battle was never about what they did. It was always about whether you'd forget who you are. But you didn't. You're still here, still strong, still awake. Now go live, not in fear of darkness, but in full command of your light. Not because the war is over, but because now you know how to win it. And that, my friend, is how the healing begins.